The Cold War's narrative is usually all about fierce rivalry, espionage, and nuclear brinkmanship. The images of nuclear missile silos, spy satellites, and propaganda campaigns dominate the story. But beneath this surface, an astonishing truth lurks: the United States and the Soviet Union, despite their ideological enmity, engaged in covert cooperation that profoundly shaped the world we live in today. How did these sworn enemies secretly work together? And what lessons does this hidden history hold? This deep dive reveals the clandestine alliances, secret exchanges, and unspoken understanding that remained concealed for decades. Chapter 1: The Seeds of Unlikely Alliance. World War I. When Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa in June 1941, the USSR suddenly found itself at war with Nazi Germany. It was then that US-Soviet cooperation began, but behind the official front, a complex web of secret diplomacy was already forming. Lend-Lease: the US supplied over $11 billion worth of military aid to the USSR from 1941 to 1945. This aid included tanks, trucks, aircraft, and industrial materials, often delivered through perilous Arctic routes. Arctic convoys, American ships, risking German U-boat attacks, delivered critical war supplies to the northern ports. The Soviets, in turn, provided intelligence on German troop deployments, pilot exchanges, and training. Soviet pilots trained on American aircraft, helping to modernize their air force at a crucial time. Secret intelligence sharing, codenamed A-bomb. Soviet agents inside the Manhattan Project leaked critical details, aiding Moscow's race to develop nuclear weapons. Though officially allies, both nations knew this alliance was temporary and fragile, covering up their real motives and suspicions. Chapter 2: Operation Frantic and the sharing of bases. In 1944, the Allies launched Operation Frantic, a series of shuttle bombing missions using American aircraft that landed on Soviet-controlled airfields. The strategic significance: bases in Ukraine and Belarus allowed the US to extend its bombing range against remaining German forces, even deep into occupied Europe. Secret cooperation: US and Soviet pilots and ground crews shared meals, played sports, and exchanged tactics. Though their governments stayed officially suspicious of one another or risks involved, the operation was so sensitive that the US rarely acknowledged it, and the Soviet Union was cautious about how much they revealed about their involvement. This collaboration was an experiment in wartime pragmatism, foreshadowing the uneasy cooperation that would characterize the Cold War's early phase. Chapter 3: Early Cold War. Cold facts: pragmatism amid hostility. In the aftermath of World War II, after the USSR's satellite states were established in Eastern Europe, US-Soviet relations rapidly deteriorated. Yet, some practical cooperation persisted quietly, driven by mutual necessity. Meteorological data exchange. Accurate weather forecasts were crucial for aircraft navigation and prevented accidentals, especially over contested zones. Nuclear test notifications: both superpowers agreed, in secret, to notify each other before nuclear tests to prevent accidental escalation, even as propaganda painted each other as enemies. Scientific and technological exchanges: behind the scenes, covert meetings of scientists and engineers set the stage for the space race, except both sides secretly shared data on missile technology and space exploration. This fragile cooperation helped prevent accidental global catastrophe while intensifying competition in the shadows. Chapter 4: Intelligence games, espionage and hidden collaboration. Espionage was the backbone of US-Soviet relations during the Cold War, acting both as competition and covert cooperation. The Manhattan Project leaks: Soviet spies like Klaus Fuchs, the Rosenbergs, and others infiltrated the US atomic program, providing Moscow with invaluable information that sped up their own nuclear efforts. Soviet infiltration of Western institutions: numerous spies operated in NATO countries and the US, passing intelligence that indirectly aided US-Soviet cooperation in other domains like space technology. The balance of power: some argue that the US tolerated or even tacitly encouraged espionage to prevent unilateral US dominance, thereby creating a strange equilibrium. The shadowy dance of spying was a form of secret collaboration, often with high stakes and dangerous consequences. Chapter 5: The Cold War's quiet diplomacy, backchannels and cultural exchanges. Despite hostile rhetoric, both superpowers maintained secret diplomatic lines and covert cultural exchanges, backchannel communications. In diplomatic backrooms, US and Soviet officials held clandestine talks, often through third-party countries like Switzerland or Austria, to prevent misunderstandings from spiraling into conflict. Track 2: Diplomacy. Academic and scientific exchanges, though limited, allowed some unofficial dialogue, setting the stage for détente later. Cultural exchanges and covert influence: artists, musicians, and intellectuals, often under strict observation, helped bridge the ideological chasm, subtly influencing popular perceptions. These efforts, often hidden from the public eye, played an outsized role in steering the course of the Cold War. Chapter 6, The Atomic Espionage Paradox: To spy or to cooperate? The most striking paradox of US-USSR relations was the complex role of espionage in their otherwise adversarial relationship. Mutual necessity. The USSR's rapid development of nuclear weapons was heavily aided by espionage. This clandestine assistance prevented a U.S. monopoly and arguably avoided nuclear war through deterrence. Tensions within the spies. Some spies, like those in the Manhattan Project, believed their actions kept the superpowers in check, but others faced moral and political dilemmas about betraying their own governments. This clandestine cooperation in nuclear science exemplifies how enemies can secretly work together for mutual safety, albeit with deadly stakes. Chapter 7, The Legacy of Hidden Cooperation. Lessons and surprises. Today, declassified documents reveal a complex history of covert partnerships, a fragile balance, balancing suspicion with necessity. Both superpowers practiced subtle cooperation to avoid deadly misunderstandings. Modern implications. Understanding these hidden alliances provides perspective on current international diplomacy, where openness masks behind-the-scenes negotiations. Lessons learned. Trust, even among enemies, is often built in secrecy, with the greatest threats being posed not by enemies themselves but by their silence and mistrust. Conclusion. The story of how the USA and USSR secretly cooperated during the Cold War complicates the traditional narrative of unrelenting hostility. Behind the headlines and propaganda, a world of clandestine alliances, espionage, and quiet diplomacy forged the fragile peace that perhaps prevented global catastrophe. This hidden history reveals that sometimes, enemies must work together in shadows to maintain the delicate balance of power.